Hello guys, I wanted to talk about a project that I completed recently. The point of this video is going to show you some of the modifications that I made to make fabrication and erection a little bit easier, but as well as point out some common mistakes detailers make that cause erection and fabrication delays. So I'll get into this here. This is a condenser platform, and each one of these units is 56,000 pounds sitting on top of the platform. This is the existing roof, and then everything below that is existing steel uh, below the roof. Everything above is obviously new. So let me turn on my status display and I'll get rid of those platforms in the roof so you can see the framing a little bit better. Now all this gray steel is existing, and then everything not gray is new. I'm gonna flip over here, show you one modification that I made. When I originally built the model off the design drawings, um, and then we had a meeting about it. Whenever the contractor for these units laid in the water pipe, um, it was relatively close to our new steel here, and also was going through the stair. Now I was just following the dimensions on the design drawings. I didn't have any information on where these were, and basically we just coordinated together to determine where these pipes were and where my steel was, and then we made modifications from there. I'll show you a little bit of my stair here, show you how it was modified. So I extended this stair out so that water pipe could fit in here, but then also we raised the platform up 6 inches so to make sure it had enough room. One thing I found that uh, those pipes were all running down to a certain location downhill because all the water wants to run downhill. So we had to make sure that we were above those pipes because we didn't want to interrupt the flow of the water in the pipes. So we couldn't be low. We could be a little bit high, but we couldn't be low. So we just raised it 6 inches to be safe. So I'll snap to this top of this platform so you can see the framing, and I'll get through uh, some of the modifications that I made. I'll show you the design drawings real quick here. So here's a look at the designs, and there's a lot of markups on here that I take notes whenever I'm going through this stuff and checking stuff off. But so once I got this all laid out, got all the framing laid out, then I then received the condenser information, which caused me to have to modify some of this steel in here. I had to adjust, I believe this row of beams up, and then I had to shift some stuff around, shift some steel around, redo the spacing or redo the grid lines on here to get it to work the way they intended, and basically just make some framing modifications that were necessary. Let me flip back over to my model view and I'll show you something else here. So once I got the units in the model, I'll show you how they sit here. So this is how they sit on the beams. I'll flip back over to blue beam so you can get a look at those. So here's what they look sitting side by side on the platform. It's like just a 3D view. And then here's the look how they sit on the beams. Like this is one one of the units and then the other side of the unit. And you can see that they sit kind of on the opposite side of the web that you would expect them to. And then I put a piece of grating in here and you can see there's really no room for that grating to bear. And that's one of the modifications that I made that some detailers might not pick up on that can cause issues in the field with erection and that can be pretty decent delay if you find that in the field too late. But I'll show you how we modified that here in the model. So you can see how my unit, there was no room for the grating to bear on either side. So what we did was we just welded a plate to the toe here of the flange, and then we also put some supports underneath it to support the grating. And then we have our holes here just for the platform and just making sure that there's no interference. Interferences with these holes for the unit. So I made those modifications. I also made several other modifications. I'll go through those here. Let me flip back over to the blue beam. I'll show you something else we did. So here in these three views here, this is kind of what they wanted to do with the bracing. Now, this unit's all sitting on top of a roof and it's all galvanized. But yet they wanted to basically field weld all the bracing in, which isn't great because, I mean, either you got to mask the galv or the guy's got to grind it off, which isn't great either, and then field weld it, and the erectors are breathing in that stuff, and that's not good stuff to be breathing in. So I'll show you what I did here, kind of get rid of that. So I changed them all to bolted connections and also dropped them down. They had them up at the top flanges, all the connections, so I just dropped it down. Made it all bolted. It's nice and clean now. It all looks, it's all nice, nicely done. It all works. So that's one modification that I did. So that should make our erection a lot easier. It's a little bit more time in the shop, but ultimately the fabricator was doing both the shop, the fabrication and erection. So this just made his erection crew sure a lot happier, not have to lay out all this bracing in. And they can just come in and bolt it up. That should speed things up a lot for them. One issue that detailers, you might see detailers make is whenever you got stiffeners, like you got a beam and there's stiffeners on either side of the beam. Sometimes they put connections in between the stiffener on both ends, and then that beam's kind of pinned between the two stiffeners. Like if this shear bar wasn't extended, it'd be in here, and it's really tough to erect. Like it's it's a pain in the ass to erect, so you don't want to do that. So what I did on here is I extended these shear bars out past the stiffener, so it makes it real easy to just swing in and connect. It makes the shear bars a little bit thicker and the bolts got a little bit bigger, but ultimately it's better than the alternative in trying to erect that between the stiffeners. And that's something I've seen detailers make mistakes on before in the past. Um, Here's another modification that I made on these drawings. This is a pretty big one. Let me flip back over to Bluebeam real quick. So here you can see they wanted moment connections here on all these outriggers here. So there's like 9 moment connections on here. So I went ahead and modified the framing. To pass these beams through and carry. So they're just an outrigger now. So I got rid of the moment connection basically. I just extended the beams through and got rid of the moment. So now that I got rid of that field welding as well for the erector and also the connection material and extra welding that you'd have to do at the column. But so that was pretty big. I feel like a pretty big benefit for both the fabricator and erector. It really simplified those 9 connections a lot. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that one. And then another thing that I did here was these connections here. Looking at the design, I'll show you what they had on the design drawings here. Here's that moment connection section of that moment connection, but so here's the connection that I was just talking about. I'll flip back over to it real quick so you can see. And I'll snap to it. So this is what we're looking at here. So the original connection, we had stiffeners on both sides of the beam. Then we had an outrigger angle, another kicker angle, and then a spacer plate, and a bunch of field welding. Field welding for this angle, and then the handrail to the angle once it was in place. And then we also had erection bolts here. So to clean up this connection for the fabricator, I suggested we just uh, do something like I'm going to show you here. So we still got the 2 stiffeners. We just made the stiffener extra big. And I'll turn my status display off. So you can see what's happening here. So the grading coming across here and bearing on the angle. And you got this extra large stiffener to carry the angle. And then we also have this kind of plate coming down here to the toe of the flange. There's a little bit more welding involved with this, but as far as fit up compared to what is shown on here, like to fit all these plates and angles in the shop, like the stiffeners aren't so bad, but fitting in the spacer plate and welding that all up and then locating this angle and dropping it down and then welding it all around here, then putting on these erection angles or the erection, adding the erection bolts and holes, and then ultimately, I guess they're showing field welds on it too, but so we got rid of all that. Well, I got rid of all that. Just did a big stiffener here, and turn this back off. Snap up here, and then I'll show you. So this is that piece, and I just put everything all together on that beam. And then another little side thing, sometimes detailers don't pay attention to where their shear bars are at. On here, I put them all on the inside, so these beams can just come in from the outside and you don't have to swing them in at all. You can just move it in from the outside straight in for erection. But yeah, I put all those stiffeners on there, just kind of build it all up. And this angle and these clips should uh, keep these plates from twisting at all. But there's just a walking surface up there, so there's not a much of load on there. But then also I added these plates to the bottom of the handrails so they can bolt through the angles. Just cleaned it all up. It's and gave some horizontal slots just for if something's a little bit off, it should still fit up. Yeah, I was happy with like all these modifications that I made on this project because it wasn't like that before. But then by the end, and then going through and basically doing what's best for both the fabricator and erector, I'm happy with the way this project's turned out. I'll zoom around here a little bit and just show you what it looks like here. And also the handrail did all PNs on this handrail just so that then there's no field welding on this galvanized stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty well, and I think customers happy with it as well. And also on these, I added some grading supports. As you can see, once I cut around these little posts, base plates, that there wasn't enough bearing, so just added some plates to carry those couple of bars there. But yeah, that's kind of just some things that I think those are modifications that I made on this project that I think benefited the fabricator and erector, and also just kind of wanted to point that out for because there is some detailers out there that don't really well they just didn't. I don't know if they haven't seen the stuff yet, but sometimes they do make mistakes that yeah cause erection and fabrication delays, and that's what I was trying to avoid on this, and I think I did it. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll post something else here as soon as I get an idea. Thanks for watching.